A big thank you to all my patrons who support the Engineered Mind podcast. Hi and welcome to the Engineered Mind podcast. In this podcast we cover topics such as engineering, artificial intelligence, neuroscience and other interesting topics to educate, inspire and engineer people's minds all around the world. I'm your host Joseph, and for this episode of the podcast I'm so happy to welcome Josh Starmer to my show. He makes online educational materials that teach data science, machine learning and statistics. StatQuest started out as an attempt to explain statistics to his former co-workers who were all genetics researchers at UNC-Chapel Hill. According to Josh, they did amazing experiments, but they didn't always know what to do with the data they generated. That was his job, but he wanted them to understand that what he did wasn't magic. It was actually quite simple. It only seemed hard because it was wrapped up in confusing terminology and typically communicated using equations. He found that if he stripped away the terminology and communicated the concepts using pictures, it became very easy to understand. Over time, he made more and more StatQuests, and now it's his passion on YouTube. In this podcast, we talked about why he founded StatQuest in the first place. We talked about haters, his love for music and mathematics, the tremendous amount of work he puts into StatQuest, leaving his regular job for his love to StatQuest, and much more interesting topics. For updates on upcoming podcasts, projects and videos, make sure to follow me on Twitter as well as on Instagram. To join my weekly newsletter engineeredmind.sh, where I share exclusive content, visit yusuf.substack.com. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here's my podcast with Josh Starmer. Okay, 3, 2, 1, bam! We have Josh Starmer here, and today he wants to give us an interview about his YouTube channel, about statistics and mathematics, and of course music, which he also loves very much. But before we jump into the podcast, Josh has prepared an Engineered Mind song.
To say I've prepared one is a bit of a stretch. I'm going to improvise one right now. How about that? The Engineered Mind. Whoa, let me start over.
Go for it.
The Engineered Mind. Podcast interview. The Engineered Mind. It's starting right now. Hip hip hooray.
This is awesome. This is my new intro song from now on. I'm feeling a bit like Joe Rogan.
Perfect.
Awesome. I welcome you to the show, Josh. It's an absolute pleasure to have you.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me.
This is awesome. So as usual, we get started or kick things off by the guest giving us like a 1 or 2 minute bio. Who is he? Who is Josh? What does he actually do? And why is he so famous?
Hello, I'm Josh Starmer. I have a YouTube channel called StatQuest with Josh Starmer, and I teach statistics, machine learning, and data science and stuff like that. I've been doing it for a few years. It is so much fun, and I love doing it. And it's the goal of StatQuest for me is I always say whatever it is, it's going to be clearly explained. I like to have things clearly explained, I guess is what it boils down to. Oftentimes when I try and I'm like, hey, I want to learn about something like some machine like neural networks. I'll be like, yeah, let's learn about neural networks. Those sound cool. And I'll look up and I'll try to read about it and I go, this is really confusing and I have no idea what's going on. So StatQuest is sort of like an attempt to sort of like fill in that gap of like clearly explained stuff. It's intended for kind of anyone. You don't have to be a professional nerd like me. You can be anybody who's just interested in machine learning or interested in like the technology that's like running the entire internet. If you have any bit of curiosity about that stuff, come to StatQuest with Josh Starmer and you might learn a few things.
This is awesome. Thank you so much for the introduction. And I see some parallels between us here because you're trying to understand the topic and you're trying to boil it down to the first principles, basically. I think this is also what Richard Feynman did in some way, right? Explaining it so that even a 5-year-old could understand it. Is this your intention with StatQuest?
I mean, yes. I mean, yes and no. I mean, it's kind of indirect. I'll be honest. My ukulele just fell over. I'll be honest. Statistics and machine learning and data science, those are all awesome topics that I do love, but they do not come easy. A lot of people think I was born knowing this stuff, but it's actually the opposite. There are real struggles for me. And my goal with StatQuest, part of it is just to teach myself. And this is the only way I can do it. And so, sure, my goal is to explain to me, and I guess on some level, I've got the intellect of a 5-year-old. So that's kind of, that's part of it. Part of it is I'm learning it as we go through it. And I need to understand it. And I'm not super good at math, and I'm not super good at linear algebra and all those fancy things. And so when I see that kind of scary notation, it scares me too. And I'm like, how do I break this down into something even I can understand? And so that's part of it. The other big part of it is, StatQuest started when I was working in a research laboratory with a bunch of biologists who hated statistics, and they hated all these things. That's the reason why they went into biology and not statistics. And my goal really was to reach them as well. I wanted my enthusiasm and my excitement to kind of like be contagious. And so they would be like, yeah, this is cool stuff, Starmer. And so I wanted, so part of it is, how do I explain it in a way that they'll understand? And how do I also convey my enthusiasm for the subject in a way that is contagious? And they're like, yeah, this is fun, And so those are my two big motives. One is just myself. And the other one is my friends and colleagues at work, where I'm just trying to communicate to them. And I want them to share the fun and excitement that I'm all excited about.
Yeah, this is great. I think there's also some kind of intrinsic motivation and also a little bit of extrinsic motivation when it comes to creating such videos, right? I mean, you feel the vibes of your audience saying, hey, you're doing such an amazing job. You helped me maybe go a different career path, for example. How do you personally see that? Is this what keeps you moving forward with StatQuest?
It is a big motivator. It's really exciting to see how StatQuest is helping people all over the world. It's mind blowing. So actually, to be honest, this at the end of this month, in just a few days, so it's January 25th. So 6 days from now, I will have my first full year of just doing StatQuest on my own. So before that, I worked in that research laboratory. And to be honest, I still visit the research laboratory. It's COVID, but I zoom in on meetings from time to time because I can't resist hanging out with these people. Back when I had that job, I loved what I was doing and I loved who I was working with. It was fun and it was a great environment and the people were just fantastic and they were doing cool stuff. I mean, it was a genetics lab working on a bunch of they're working on human cancer, working on a bunch of human diseases. And I loved that work because I felt like it was the kind of work that was making a difference. However, it was also becoming very clear to me that StatQuest was making a difference as well. And it became clearer and clearer and clearer that StatQuest wasn't just making a difference. If I could figure out, if I wanted to maximize my impact on the world, I could stay at my job and that would have been fine and fun, but it wouldn't maximize the kind of things I can do for people and the way I can help people in the world. And that was ultimately the decision I made a year ago, almost to this day, where I was like, if I'm really going to do what I think is the most important thing for me to do, I have to do StatQuest full time. And it was one of the scariest things I've done in my whole life. I felt like I was jumping off a cliff because the financials were not in place at that point. I'd saved up money from my job. And I was like, I felt like I could make it a few months off my savings. I mean, I make some money off of YouTube. But what happened was I did some projections like, yeah, things seem to be going up and it'd be great. And so I jumped off that cliff and I was like, well, we'll just see what happens in the next couple of months. I'm going to give myself a year to at least be at a level where what I did is my goal was to make as much money as what's called a postdoc. It's sort of like a purgatory job that you get after you get a PhD. It's not a real professorship. You're still just kind of like an embryonic student in a way. You're not really on your own. And what I wanted to do is see if I could make as much money as I made 10 years ago when I was a postdoc. And that was my goal for the year. And I ended up getting there. And it was very scary at first because I wasn't even close to that at the beginning. And then COVID came, and you would think COVID would be awesome for people that have videos online, but it was actually the opposite because I think the economy kind of freaked out for a little bit and a lot of advertising revenue went away. And so instead of growing like I was expecting YouTube to grow, it actually went the other way. It went down, and I was making less money than I did when I started. And I was like, oh no, this is not going to work at all. So it was very stressful. But it ultimately, what I did is I started supplementing the YouTube revenue with, I started doing online webinars, sort of live webinars, which were super fun. And I started making these study guides, and I started doing kind of like a lot of other things to kind of like round out my revenue. And it ended up ultimately working out, but it was a lot of hustle, and it was pretty exhausting. But I succeeded, and I got to see that's one of the best feelings I've ever had in my whole life, is to make it through that year and hit that goal that I had.
Yeah, I can relate somehow because I am like 5 subscribers away from 10K, which is like this is like my first milestone. And seeing you with that amount of subscribers, I can imagine even I at the moment at my level, I get so many messages, sometimes also here and there some negative ones, like from people who don't have anything else to do. We'll talk about that in a moment as well. But most of them are overwhelming, and I can't imagine, like you having almost 500,000 subs, how many messages you get every day. It must be crazy.
It's a lot. I have to be kind of disciplined about it. Otherwise, all day, all I will do is answer comments, and I won't get any StatQuest done, and that's terrible. I mean, it's good because I'm answering comments, but so I have to be super disciplined, and I have an hour in the morning. First thing in the morning, I answer comments, and then last thing in the evening is I answer comments. So I try to be very disciplined about. I used to just do it throughout the day because it's kind of fun. I'll be honest. It is a pick me up, and it's kind of charges me up when I'm kind of like, it's the middle of the afternoon. I'm kind of getting a little drowsy, and I log into StatQuest, and some guy's like, hey, I just passed an exam because of StatQuest. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's awesome. And that kind of charges me up and gets me excited again. But now I've got to be super disciplined about it because otherwise I'll never get anything else done.
Yeah. What do you think personally about haters? I mean, we don't want to be negative, right? But what do you think motivates these haters? I mean, there are some from time to time, right? Is it just because they have nothing else to do, or they want to prove themselves? If Josh answers me, maybe he goes into a fight with me.
Yeah, I think, I'll be honest, that was a big shock for me. It didn't make any sense early on because basically, what am I doing? I'm helping people with their homework or studying for an exam. How could that offend anyone? But it does. Not that many. I will say probably out of like every, maybe, every once a week, or every, 250,000 or 300,000 views, I'll get one negative comment. And I'll be honest, I think that's great. That means 99.99999% of the people out there are totally awesome. And for there to be a small percentage, like 0.00001 of just people that have some serious problems, it might not even be me that's triggering it. It could be anything. It could be something from their life. Yeah. Maybe something really bad happened to them. And and they're in a lot of pain. It's easy to be kind of grumpy if you stub your toe that morning or something bad happen to you, or, some people are in chronic pain, and this could just be a manifestation of all kinds of stuff. Although it took me some time to come to these realizations. At first, when I first saw those negative comments, it hurt me real bad. And it made me, it was very discouraging because I get a lot of positive feedback, and I love that positive feedback, but I get it so much that this is going to sound arrogant or whatever, but I kind of start taking it for granted of like, oh yeah, of course people like StatQuest. And you kind of stop thinking about it until you get that negative comment. And it's like a knife that cuts through all of the positivity and all the good energy, and it cuts right through and it hits you right in the heart, and it hurts way more than because what I didn't realize is all that positive energy had kind of put me up in a really kind of high happiness state. And even though and then I just came crashing down, and that was really hard and took some time to get not used to, but learn how to deal with and learn how to redirect that and go, wait a minute, it's probably not me personally, even though what that guy wrote was an incredibly personal and incredibly abusive comment. It's actually probably not me. It's probably something wrong with them or something in their life that's not working the way it needs to be working. And I just happened to be there at the wrong time. And what I need to do is just ignore that and go back to the people that I know that I'm helping, me, go back to those people. And it's just, that's how I kind of get through it. But it was hard at first, and it took some practice, and it was very unexpected. But yeah, the way I see it is anyone who's, I'd never met people like this before, but before I was doing StatQuest, I only knew, maybe 50 people total. I worked with a couple of people, I knew some other people that were just friends. I played in bands or whatever. I didn't know that many people or even interact with that many people. But now that my videos are being watched all over the world by hundreds and thousands and millions of people, well, occasionally you get a weirdo in there. And I feel like ultimately, like I was saying, I would say 99.999% of the world, what I've discovered from this is totally awesome. And they're crazy cool people that, I like them because they like StatQuest, but they're also just like, some people write poetry and they write, fan StatQuest songs and whatnot. And that's so cool and awesome. But every now and then there's a bad apple, but there's a lot fewer than I guess I realized. They're out there, but it's a really small percentage. And I think that's great to when I realized that.
Yeah. I also have to give you props, by the way, because there's something I have to mention, because I reached out to several YouTubers, right? Sometimes even bigger ones. And they were answering back via email saying, hey, you're way too small. Why should I even do a podcast with you? Like exactly saying it that way. So I really much appreciate you being on the show. And actually, this is also inspiring me that when I grow bigger, to even push smaller channels, because what you're doing at the moment is not like common sense, I guess, because there are some people out there who say, no, you're too small. I have like 10x the subscriber amount, and you're basically not worth it or worth doing an interview because you cannot give me anything back,
Yeah, I don't know. Different people have different ways of doing things. For me, I'll be honest, StatQuest is about the people. I make videos, but I don't make them. I make a little bit of the video for myself, but I don't put them online for myself. I put them online for people, and it's the people that watch StatQuest that make it what it is. It's not me. It's the fans. It's the subscribers, and that's what makes StatQuest. And so it makes sense for me to give back whenever I have an opportunity, because I wouldn't. If no one subscribed to StatQuest and nobody liked my videos, then where would I be? Nowhere. So I have to give back.
Yeah, I love this altruism, Josh. Props to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Maybe we want to close the chapter of haters now and move forward. There's a deep connection you have to mathematics, but also to music. And I know that your dad taught in India, and you studied classical music, if I'm not mistaken. Can you maybe explain a little bit around that story or the time in India?
Well, I've been playing music my whole life. But when I was younger, my father moved to Chennai, India. Not just my father, both my parents moved to Chennai, India for several years to teach at the IIT. He taught biomedical engineering at the IIT in Chennai. And so I was there for a little while as well. And I studied South Indian music while I was there because I love music, and I loved classical music, and they just have a wonderful classical music tradition there that's just amazing, and just it's very rich. And it would have been a complete waste had I not dived into that while I was there. And so, yeah, so I learned how to play a handful of instruments. A lot of people ask right behind me, you'll see two tablas. I took tabla lessons and practiced tabla. Although it's been a little while since I played the tabla, but there's I also learned how to play the Carnatic Veena, which is this massive instrument made out of a jackfruit tree. And then I also learned how to play another instrument, which I always mispronounce, that I call the dilruba. And I'm just going to say that's the best I can do. I'm trying as hard as I can to say it right, but I never say it right. And that's the one I actually still play. It's a beautiful. It's like I don't know if you're familiar with a sitar, but it's just like a sitar in every way, except you play it with a bow. But it has the same sort of scalloped wire frets, and you can bend the notes just as much. And it has a lot of these resonator strings, and it is just a beautiful instrument. It's one of my favorite instruments to play. I love it. So that was a real special time. I feel very lucky that I had that opportunity, because I know a lot of people don't have that opportunity to go spend a couple of years in India and practice, and learn how to play South Indian music.
Yeah.
So I feel very lucky.
Yeah, that's cool. How is it with Indian people when it comes to the statistics to your channel? Is India the biggest chunk of visitors you have or audience you have?
It's right up there.
Same for me.
Yeah, it's to me, it's very flattering to me, because when I studied statistics in college, I learned about a lot of the statistics were created by these awesome geniuses from Calcutta, which is now called Kolkata, I believe. I'm probably mispronouncing that as well. But back then, it was all these super genius statisticians coming from Calcutta, and possibly, and just, I don't know. So I always think of India as one of the birthplaces of statistics. And so it's super flattering to know that people in India watch my videos as well. I think that's, I don't know. I don't know. That's cool. I feel like it's really cool.
Yeah, I think that also gives you a little bit of sense. Like when you look in the back end of YouTube, right, and you see India on top, then followed, at least for me, America, and then Germany, and then United Kingdom. But you see that Indian people are very inquisitive, right? They want to learn more. They use the resource of YouTube and actually take advantage of it and create cool projects on their own.
It's super awesome. Yeah, I have a lot of respect for that kind of self-motivation and just sort of desire to learn new things. I think it's fantastic. Yeah. So it's an exciting phenomenon. And I hope one day COVID will go away. And I think it'll happen soon. We got these vaccines, but one day I'll get one. That'd be awesome. But I would love to go to India and do like a StatQuest tour of India and hit some of the bigger cities and maybe some of the smaller towns. I don't know. It's when I was there, I just was struck by how beautiful it is. It is vivid. It's technicolor in ways that I couldn't possibly imagine. I mean, here it's sort of gray and drab, and there it was just vibrant and just so much energy and color and awesomeness. So I really am looking forward to getting back to India, and I hope one day that'll happen.
Yeah, same goes for me. I hope this whole thing will end soon.
Yeah.
When it comes to the workflow of StatQuest or preparing videos, how much work do you put into them? I can imagine a lot. When it comes to research, filming them all over again, editing.
Yeah. Yeah, so the research and the creating of the pictures and all that takes forever. I mean, like I was saying earlier, I'm kind of starting from zero. Like I said, a lot of people think I knew this. I was born knowing this stuff, or I learned it in class or in a school or something like that. But I did not. I'm learning it as I go. Like I said, I'm doing this series on neural networks right now. I'm right in the middle of it. Before I started this, I did not know anything about neural networks. And so I have to research it from scratch. And that can take months. Sometimes it even takes years. And then making the images and the slides and whatnot takes a shockingly large amount of time. The recording and editing, I do that in a day. And so that's nothing. Everything else is weeks and months of preparation. It's a long process, but I'll be honest, I love it because I kind of like doing puzzles, and putting together a StatQuest is kind of like solving a very cool puzzle, because I've got all these pieces, and which are the knowledge. I've got all these little pieces of knowledge, and I can put them together in any way I want, but there's only one way. Well, there's maybe more than one way. But there's only a few ways that I can put them together in a way that is clearly explained, that has a nice story arc, that starts with a problem that's like, we've got this nonlinear data set. What are we going to do? Well, maybe we can do that with neural networks. And here's how neural networks solve that problem in a very clear, like, logical progression without jumping over any kind of big steps. Like, everything is explained one step at a time. And it's just like solving a puzzle. Once I see that I put it all together, it's just a rush. I'm on fire for the next couple of days. I'm just bouncing around going, hey, I did it. I figured it out, and I'm so proud of myself, I guess. But that's it's a super fun part, is kind of like figuring out how to solve that puzzle. And it takes a long time. It's not always easy, but it's like I've got a love-hate relationship. I think sometimes, the longer it takes me to figure it out, the more excited I am once I do, So it's like, I'd like for it not to take that long to figure out, but it also feels really good when I do, so I don't know.
Yeah, this is so cool. I can also relate to that, because putting up a video is, for some people, they sometimes ask, hey, where's the next video? Where's the next video? But there's so much research going into it, and you want to also avoid the haters writing a comment, hey, you forgot that, you explained that wrong. And you have this internal pressure of not forgetting anything before someone jumps in the comment section and says, hey, you forgot something, you explained it wrong.
And I always forget something. I've got every single video I have that probably has a pinned comment saying, oops, and with a, like, I should have said this, hopefully you still get the, oftentimes I comfort myself, and it's like some detail, like I did the math wrong. Like I was supposed to multiply like 2 times 10, and I ended up multiplying 2 times 0.1 or something stupid like that. I'm really bad at just doing raw calculations, and it's so embarrassing. But that was something I've also learned, sort of like dealing with the haters. I've also learned that, like, I don't have to be perfect. The goal isn't to be perfect. The goal really is to convey the main ideas. And, if there's a few mistakes in there in the math or something like that, as long as it doesn't get in the way of people understanding the main ideas, then I've done my job. And if it does get in the way, I will bite the bullet. I'll take the video down and I'll fix it and I'll put it back up. But it is kind of tough when, it's like I've looked at it a million times and it looks good, but there's something to be said that's a little different when all of a sudden, like, thousands of other people are looking at it and they're like, I found a mistake. And I'm like, oh, there's always one. It's humiliating.
Yeah, right. I mean, in that sense, we are sometimes, or almost all of the times, biased in that sense, right? Because we created the video. For us, psychologically, this looks super correct and we didn't do any mistakes. When it comes to going full-time for StatQuest, do you think that not having a 9 to 5 on the side or a job on the side improves your quality for the videos because you don't have this in the back of your head, oh, tomorrow I have to work from 9 to 5 and then jump to YouTube. And this is like a big relief, I guess, because how I'm doing it is I'm working full time, I'm having my thesis on the side plus YouTube, and you always have this kind of pressure in this 3 points, and it's affecting you. You cannot say it's not affecting you because it's a lot of work, right?
It is a lot of work. So I will say the big difference between the full-time YouTube and hobby YouTube is my videos can come out much more frequently. You know, it used to be, I mean, I had a job and I was doing important stuff, and that always got priority because that's what was paying the bills. And so that's what I did. And, you know, when I had time, when I had spare time, I'd work on StatQuest whenever I could because I loved it and I was super passionate about it. But everything took longer. And so the big difference for me with going full time is I can crank out a lot more videos a lot faster than I could before. So for example, I think for the next 5 weeks, maybe even 6 weeks, I'm going to have a video come out every week. And that's something, I mean, before I was lucky if I had a video come out every other month, you know, so it's a big change. I mean, even though I will still be honest, even though I am full time, it's not like I have stuff coming out every single week. There are times when I have to kind of go dark because I'm studying very deeply. But it also frees up, you know, and so I have to, excuse me, let me jump back. I'm all over the place. I'm totally like scatterbrained.
Oh, good.
So, which is why I have to edit my videos so much. But what I'm trying to say is, you know, I go dark because when I was studying neural networks, I was doing a lot of other stuff at that time, and I just went dark, and I couldn't focus on anything but neural networks. And I did that for a long time before I had a video. It was probably like 2 months of like solid studying before the first video come. Mm-hmm. So there is sometimes there's not like materials coming out all the time, but once I get that momentum, I can roll with it. And then this material can come out really quickly. And that's awesome. The other thing that I'm really excited about doing StatQuest full time are these like the webinars and podcast interviews and things like the ways I can now have time to interact with my audience in ways that I never had before. And so I'm excited about that. That's something that I didn't really expect would be kind of like a bonus of doing it full time. But I feel like I'm much more connected to my audience before. Before it was like I just made videos and it didn't really, you know, I mean, I would reply to comments and whatnot, but I didn't know who was the audience that well. You know, it was still all just in my head. But now I feel like I'm developing a connection and we're developing a community. And so that's something that I couldn't have done before. And I now have more time for. And on top of one last thing, it's also giving me time to finally write a book. And that's my goal for 2021. Is to write the StatQuest Illustrated Guide to Machine Learning. And I've been cranking away on that as well. And there's no way I would have been able to do all these things a year ago. And so it really makes sense for me to be doing this full time because I just wouldn't be able to do half of it otherwise.
This is so great. I'm looking forward to purchasing your book, of course. And once it's out, maybe we can put it in the description with let's see, maybe a discount code or something like that.
Yeah.
One thing before I forget it, and it's beautiful that you mentioned it because there's this difference between having a 9-to-5 job, being in this capsule of being in a job and inspiring a few people here and there, and then you choosing, which is like not an easy step, going to StatQuest and inspiring like hundreds, thousands of people, maybe even millions.
Yeah.
Was that the decision for you where you maybe said to your boss, hey, I have a decision to make. I want to touch people. I want to I leave an impact on the world. I'd rather do StatQuest rather than my job in the lab, which I still love. Yeah.
Well, so it's kind of an interesting story. So laboratory work is very hard. And it is nothing. It's like for every success, you have like 100 failures. Something in the experiment goes wrong. And that experiment took 3 days and there's 1 million steps. And so who knows, maybe this bottle of some chemical was old and off. There could be a billion reasons why your experiment doesn't work. Failure happens all the time. And so my boss used to tell me, he said, Josh, in order to kind of get through the down part so that you finally have your success in the end, you have to convince yourself that what you're doing is the most important thing in the world, and when you believe that what you're doing is the most important thing in the world, you can slog through those failures, and you can hold your head up high and go, I know I've failed, but I know if I keep at it, I will accomplish the most important thing for me to do. And so he told me that, and I was thinking about that, and I was thinking, well, yeah, that makes sense. You want to believe that what you're doing is important, and you want to believe it's the most important thing that you could be doing. And we could all be doing lots of things. I could be sitting on the beach, but is that the most important thing I could do? Occasionally, I do need rest, and it might be the most important thing for me to do. But I don't want to spend all the time just lounging on the beach, because that wouldn't be the most important thing I could be doing. Yeah. And once I started thinking about it in those terms of what's the most important thing I could be doing, StatQuest started to become that. I was like, yeah, that is actually the most important thing I could be doing. I was thinking about, I was in academics, and I was thinking, I could spend 2 years writing a publication for some arcane academic journal, and maybe 20 or 100 people might read that. And of those 20 or 100 people that read that article, I don't know how many people, it probably wouldn't help that many people, and then I was like, well, but then I can make a video, and it doesn't take 2 years. It might take a couple of months or 6 months or something like that. But then within a month, I know I've helped 10,000 people or something like that. And they've all been like, I just passed my exam, or I just got a job, or I got a raise, or something like that. And I'm like, it just became clear that the most important thing I could be doing was making StatQuest, because those were making the biggest difference. And what was weird is a year ago exactly, my boss called me into his office just for one of these like monthly checkups. My boss is super busy. He's got a million things to do, and the way the lab worked was pretty autonomously. Like he was not a micromanager. He would say, this is what you need to do. Let's talk about it in a month. He wouldn't like show up like 30 minutes later and goes, how's it coming? So we'd have her once a month kind of check in. I'd tell him what I was working on, and I told him what I had plans on for the next 6 months. And then he goes, and to be honest, I've been realizing that StatQuest was the most important thing, but the money wasn't there. Like, I couldn't just quit my job. And I was kind of thinking maybe in 2 years I'll do StatQuest full time. But I was just talking to him, and he's like, well, you need to do this and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you're right. All that stuff is what I need to do to make this career happen. But my heart isn't in it. My heart is in StatQuest, because I know that's what's making the biggest difference. And he says, well, if that's where your heart is, and that's where you're making the biggest difference, that's what you need to do. And I was like, yes, you're right. And I almost had a breakdown right then and there. It was one of the scariest things that had ever happened, because I went in not expecting to quit my job. I went in expecting to just keep doing what I'd been doing. And this meeting took all of 5 minutes. And I went from presenting my next 6 months to thinking, how am I going to be making money? And he didn't fire me. He definitely did not fire me. This was like, together we made this decision that this is what I needed to be doing. And it scared me to death, but I knew I had to do it. I wanted to wait 2 years, because then I was like, well, maybe the money will be there and it'll make sense. But no, I have to start this now, because the sooner I start doing this, the sooner I can be maximizing the difference I make in the world. And I need to do it now. And so we made it work, and I made it work, and I feel very lucky. I know not everyone succeeds at that, and it's a dream for me, and not everyone gets to live their dream. So I feel very fortunate and very lucky that I've been able to do it. And I also feel incredibly fortunate that not only am I able to do it, but I also know what the most important thing is for me to do. I know a lot of people struggle with that. They're like, what am I going to do with my life? What am I good at? What are my special skills, or what can I do that other people can't do that is super helpful? A lot of people struggle with that, and it can take a real long time. And so I just feel so lucky in so many ways. I don't know. I just feel lucky. But that was a very intense, scary meeting that I had.
Yeah, I can imagine that. And while you were saying that, I could even imagine myself saying that at some point, where I said maybe I could go part-time, I don't know, maybe even full-time YouTube, but it's very risky, right? So I really much appreciate you sharing the story with us. There is this saying which goes like this: it's hard work beats talent when talent hardly works. Do you think you're more of a hard worker? And what are your unfair advantages because you're so successful, quote unquote, on YouTube? What would you say?
So I mean, obviously I like to think of myself as a hard worker, and I do think that I have certain talents, and the specific talents are kind of like I can look at when I'm making these presentations, I can kind of instinctively look at that and go, that's not going to make any sense to anybody. I've got to make it clearer. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's my superpower. Is I have in a certain degree, I have some empathy with outsiders, people that don't understand. They're not part of the club. I have empathy for those people, and I want them to be part of the club. I want them to have as much fun and come to the party that I'm at. And I don't want them to be stuck outside in the cold. And I feel like if I have any talent, my talent is in being able to spot those little things that are the difference between understanding and not understanding, or like, because some people look at an equation and they're like, I get it. That's their talent. That's their superpower. And that's awesome. And that's a very important skill to have. And it's super useful. I don't have that skill, but what I do have is the ability to kind of break that complicated equation down into a step-by-step thing or procedure or whatever, or presentation, a step-by-step presentation that other people can understand. And I feel like that's my talent, but because I don't understand it intuitively, I have to work very hard to even get to where I can use my talent. I'll look, if you look at the equation for neural networks, what freaks me out is people have equations for decision trees. People like, here's the equation for a decision tree. I'm like, are you kidding me? But they have that stuff, and I have to struggle and work very hard to get to where I can even like sort of understand, and I have to draw all these pictures to get there. And so I feel like part of my talent depends on my weakness, right? Because I have to break it down into these small things, that gets me halfway to where I need to be. So my talent is kind of my weakness, I guess. It all kind of meshes together. It works. I can't explain exactly how it works, but it does work, and I'm very lucky. But I will say it is hard work, and I'm not just sitting around, drinking sodas and, laying in the sun. There's days where, I'll be honest, there's days where I doubt I can do it. My hands get sweaty. I'm looking like I was just. So I'm working on neural networks, and I'm working on a video on how to use something called cross entropy for your neural network. And I was trying to figure out how cross entropy worked with this other thing called back propagation. And I wanted to merge these two things. I wanted to talk about how these things could work together. And I couldn't figure it out. I looked at all these websites, and, And they were like, this is easy. Look, we're just going to do a couple of derivatives, blah, 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 no big deal. And then we're going to invoke this fancy equation that I can't even pronounce and blah, blah, blah. And I was looking at it and I was like, I can't do this. Just thinking about it, my hands are getting sweaty right now, and I was like, I can't, and I had a lot of doubt. And I just kept at it every day. I would try it again. I didn't bang my head over a wall or into the wall all day long for 8 hours, but I would struggle with a couple hours every day. And eventually I figured it out and I was like, yeah, I did it. But I don't always believe that I can. And that's a scary, hard thing too, because the expectations are very high, and I hate to be the person to be like, I tried to understand it and I couldn't figure it out. I don't want to be that person. So I work very hard to get through all that stuff. And to the other end where I can explain it. And I just was like, I was so ashamed. I was like, how can I publish about this? And because I know people are going to ask about it. They're like, hey, how does it work with backpropagation? I'll be like, I don't know. I couldn't figure it out. I didn't want to be that person. So I worked really hard and I got it. So yeah, I guess that's my I love that phrase though that you had. What was it?
Hard work beats talent when talent hardly works.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Maybe you can sing a song about that in the next video you publish.
Oh, I love it. I had a cello teacher when I was young, and he says, talent without hard work, that's all it'll ever be.
Yeah, this is also good. But I think the other, the one I said is a bit, fits a bit more, right? Because
I like it a little more. I like it even more. Yeah, I like what your phrase.
Put out a StatQuest shirt with a quote on it.
I love it, yeah.
I appreciate it, Josh, telling me the stories, because I can relate. Like if you have an interview with anybody else, for example, who is not putting in the work into YouTube, you know that at the beginning you make nothing, and then eventually the compound effect kicks in where you see, hey, I made 3 cents a day from a video, which is like an incredible feeling. And it's a lot of hard work, and you need at least 2, maybe 3 years to even see the fruits that you can earn from your videos. A lot of people contacted me before the podcast and asking, hey, ask Josh, please, what are the best resources he would recommend for machine learning / statistics, apart from your channel, of course, and the great book that you will put out this year.
The StatQuest Illustrated Guide to Machine Learning. I can't wait. So my other favorite book is The Introduction to Statistical Learning by, I can't remember all the authors, Tib Shirani is there. Daniela Witten helped out with that one. And I'm blanking on the other 2. And this is super embarrassing. It's an awesome book. It's a free download.
Oh, okay.
These guys, the people that wrote these books, are some of the smartest people to have lived in the past 100 years. I mean, they deserve Nobel Prizes. And they're giving this book away. It's amazing. I will say it's not the easiest read. That being said, it's free, and my videos follow it along. So if you read something and you're like, that's very confusing, chances are there's a StatQuest, and you can watch the StatQuest and get you can watch the StatQuest and get the main ideas. And even some details, not just main ideas, but you'll get mostly the main ideas plus some details. Then you can go back to that book and reread it. And what that'll help you do is sort of bridge the gap between how StatQuest talks about machine learning and data science and how everybody else in the world talks about it, with a much more formal notation and sigma notation and lots of Greek characters, which are awesome. But Greek language is awesome. But for me, it makes an equation very scary. Anyways, I think combined, those things could be very powerful in terms of like bringing you up to a higher level. But those are my favorite books. That is my favorite book. Mm-hmm. I don't have that many other favorite books. I do have some favorite websites. There's the Penn State, which is a university in Pennsylvania. They have an awesome online statistics course or whatever, all the material's free. It's awesome. I go there. I love it when I'm researching something and they have a page on it. That's like the first place I go. I'm like, yes, these people are going to go do a good job explaining something. And they still rely very heavily on the mathematical notation, and they're not very graphically inclined like I am. But I feel like it, so I often don't get it the first time. I have to read that site, and I have to keep going back to it, and eventually it sinks in and I understand it. But it's a great resource. UCLA also has a great online resource. I can't remember the name of it, but they've got some, statistical sort of like group that puts a bunch of very useful tutorials and explanations online. And I've relied on those heavily in order to develop my own understanding and learning.
Got it. Yeah. And before we jump to the next question, to make sure, can we find on your website upcoming Zoom calls where you do this data prep in detail, or is it something you laid off for the moment?
Oh, like the webinars?
Yeah, webinars, exactly.
So right now I'm not doing them just because I really want to get through neural networks. Mm-hmm. Once they're done, I'm going to go back to them. However, obviously you can, the webinars are still online. You can, I've recorded them and you can watch them. What I like about those webinars is, a lot of my videos are theory, like how do decision trees work? And, and I've got little pretend data sets and blah, blah, blah. And we're like predicting something silly or something like that. In the webinars, it's all real. I'm using real data, and it's a real machine learning thing. And what does that mean? By being real, it means 75 to 80% of the time, we just format data. We're dealing with missing data. We're one-hot encoding variables. We're normalizing things or standardizing things. We're doing all kinds of stuff, and then after 45 minutes have passed, we've got 15 minutes left. We finally build our model with cross-validation and we do some output stuff. But it's very real, and it's sort of like, this is what you actually have to do in reality, and it's step by step, and I try to explain everything. And so yeah, the webinars are on my, links to them. You can find them on YouTube, but you can also find them on my StatQuest.org website. I've got an index of all of my videos kind of grouped by category, like statistics, machine learning, and then underneath that are my webinars. And as soon as neural networks are over, I think I'm going to celebrate by doing a webinar on neural networks, and then we'll start doing more webinars. I've got a long list of topics I want to cover, and I'm excited about that.
This is so cool, yeah. I also saw on your website before this interview that you also sell some small guides. I forgot the name, for example, for PCA, which costs actually a few bucks. It's like $3, which is nothing, right?
Yeah. So we, the study guides, exactly. Which I'm super excited about and I'm very proud of. That was one of the things I had to do early on. I was like, wait a minute, I'm actually not making any money from YouTube. What am I going to do? So I started making these study guides, and they're like 6 to 10 pages. It's like a StatQuest, but in like paper format. I mean, it's PDF, but you could print it out if you wanted to and have an actual physical StatQuest. And I sell those, and that's sort of what makes it all work in terms of StatQuest and me being able to pay for my groceries. And also making those study guides was actually made me realize, I don't just have to do this for individual topics. I could do this for a whole book. Because usually when you read a book, it's like a bunch of words. Mm-hmm. And maybe an equation every other page, and maybe like 10 pages into it, there's like a little graph, and you're like, ugh, what kind of book is this? Like, it's a normal book, I guess. But that's not a StatQuest. And making these study guides, and they're all pictures, and I realized I developed the way I'm writing my book, which is, it's almost like a comic book or a graphic novel about machine learning. It's like, it's all pictures. I mean, there's a little bit of text, but mostly it's like looking at a bunch of drawings, and I'm pointing out features in those drawings, but the drawings dominate, and the text is the little part of my book. So it's a little weird to tell people I'm writing a book when I'm actually drawing a book. But it's awesome, and I just love it. And the study guides are kind of how I develop that style, and I'm really proud of those. I'm really, yeah. So check them out if you have some time and a few extra dollars. They're really cheap, and they help me put food on the table.
Yeah, that's great. Maybe I'll get some myself and also get your book once it's out, because in my personal opinion, if you see a creator who's putting a lot of love and effort into his videos, I think there is this urge inside of me which says, okay, give him a few bucks, buy his stuff, whatever, just that he can put groceries on the table, right? So I'll do that for sure.
Oh, thanks.
I will of course put the links down to your shop in the description. If anybody wants to buy something from Josh, please do so. I would really appreciate it. How do you prevent burnout, Josh?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. So I don't know, how do I describe this? I'm kind of manic about, like, I've been on fire about neural networks now since August, and that's all I can think of. And I just kind of work on it all the time and blah blah and plug away. There will be a time though where I do get a little burned out. However, one thing that's nice about, there's a bunch of things that are nice about StatQuest, is there's always different topics that I can do. Like, sure, I've been talking about neural networks forever, and I've got 1 or 2 more months to go. But there's other topics I can talk about. And so I'm always kind of I'm like juggling things. So I'm working on neural networks right now, but I'm also working on stuff that's further out. And so that helps me stay enthusiastic, so things stay fresh. And, I'll take a few days off and I'll work on something that's, a little further out. Like, I'm going to do a StatQuest on something called independent component analysis. Mm-hmm. So if I'm bummed about, I'm like, come on, I've been doing this for months, I need a break. Then I'm like, well, I don't know anything about independent component analysis, but I know I want to talk about it. So, I'll spend a week, I'll take a week off of neural networks and spend a week just doing independent component analysis and kind of taking notes and trying to figure out, how I'm going to explain that. So that helps. The other thing that helps me is music. Obviously I love music and I love playing music, but it's like therapy for me. If I'm not feeling it and my head isn't working, and that happens from time to time, I pick up my ukulele and I just start strumming. And there's nothing like music to clear my head. It's like I can't think about math and I can't think about data science or machine learning and play music at the same time, even though I can sing silly songs. But if I'm really going to focus on music, I have to clear my head. And what I like about music, playing music, is it's clearing my head is natural. It's not like something I have to focus on or work at. It's not like meditation where you've got to you clear your head with doing meditation, like 30, not even 30 seconds, 5 seconds later, I'm thinking about StatQuest again. And then you got to, just push that away, push it away. And I'm like, nope, StatQuest, thinking about it, push it away, push it away. So meditation to me is hard and very disciplined, but music is fun and easy. And it's all I'm thinking about. It's like, I can push away all my other thoughts. And so that's something that helps me sort of mentally and keep going, especially in this time of COVID when, it's basically impossible to take a vacation. I just keep working. Yeah. Although I will say, I apologize for always rambling and always have extra things to say. I will say one of the best things about COVID is starting at my own business, because it shut everything else in my life. I mean, it shut everything down for everybody in the whole world. So I feel a little selfish in saying that was actually good for me, because it took away all the distractions. I love my friends and I love hanging out with my friends, but we couldn't hang out. And I couldn't go out to dinner. I couldn't go out and have fun or whatever. So all I did is just stayed home and I worked on StatQuest all day, every day. And it was a lot of work and it was completely exhausting, but it's what helped make it work, you know? And I feel like now I'm in a place where I can be very sustainable. And to be honest, I feel like the lockdown kind of helped me out a little bit with that, because it just took away all my distractions and said, there's nothing else to do. Focus on StatQuest and make it work. And so that was good for me. So yeah, that.
I have to agree. There's so many parallels between us. It's kind of funny. What for you, before we jump to something which I call the question rampage, I have 10 questions prepared for you, Josh. And optimally, you give like an answer in 1 or 2 sentences, maybe 1 word.
Okay, try.
Before we jump into the question rampage, one last thing I want to talk about, maybe you can emphasize on this a little bit more. What are the parallels between music and mathematics? What combines them?
I'll be honest, I don't know. I just know that I can't have one without the other. So not a lot of people know this about me, especially because their only exposure to my music is through my silly songs, which are intentionally silly and intentionally sort of spur of the moment and fun and improvised. However, music has always been like I was saying, I studied music in India. I studied classical music growing up. It's always been a huge passion of mine. And I've actually been a professional musician for a while. And what I discovered is that music without math or StatQuest or machine learning or statistics, music without those things in my life I was not happy. Mm-hmm. Doing just statistics and machine learning without music, and I'm not happy. I have to have them both. I have to have that balance in my life. I have to have them. And so I don't really know how they're related or if one they use the same part of the brain or not, I just know that I love playing music, and it's a way that I can clear my brain, and it gives me, I love the emotions and the feelings of music. But without statistics and machine learning, it's not enough. I have to have those things. I have to have them both. I can't just have one.
Beautifully put. I appreciate it, Josh. So now the question rampage. If you're ready. Maybe I have to, I told my guests already, maybe I have to change the name, but I think question rampage puts it quite well, I guess.
I love it. I think it's hilarious. So stick to it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the feedback. Question number 1 is, what are you most proud of?
I mean, StatQuest, yeah.
Obviously. Yeah. Question number 2, favorite music genre?
Oh, geez. I just like music. I'll listen to anything. I'm kind of tasteless in that respect. I just turn on the radio. I'm like, oh, it's music. I like it. So.
Great. Best tip to work on a hard task productively?
A little bit every day. Consistency.
Great tip. If you could spend one day with a celebrity, who would it be? Doesn't matter if he or she's dead or alive.
I've got a huge crush on Neil Stephenson, and I know he doesn't like talking, or I've been told he doesn't like talking to people, and he'd probably be a terrible person, but I would love to spend a day with Neil Stephenson. I fantasize about sitting next to him on an airplane.
That's great. Next question. Video from your channel you enjoyed filming the most and the least?
I'm most proud of, well, I don't know if I liked filming it the most, but I'm most proud of my linear models series. They're old videos, but to me, that was the first time I felt like I really developed my style. And that's when StatQuest sort of became StatQuest. I'm really proud of those videos. Mm-hmm. They're not perfect, but they're my favorite.
And least
what's
favorite?
The least favorite? Oh, geez. I mean, it's true. There's none that I hated. The gradation is between like love, passionately, and just kind of love. You know, you're my best friend. And which StatQuest was my best friend and not my most passionate lover? geez, I have to like pull up a list of them. This may take a little bit of time. Let me just scroll through. Maybe I'll just see one real fast. I don't know. They're all. I've got a soft spot for all of them.
Maybe you have something in the back of your head where I thought, okay, filming this was horrible. Scripting didn't work the first take, the second take, something like this, where things didn't align perfectly well.
I think I always just throw those away and pretend they never happened and they don't get published.
Then I guess we can leave it at that.
Yeah,
they're all good.
I'm proud of them all. They're all my little babies and I love them each. I love them all. They're all individuals and they're all different and I like them for different reasons, but my love for them is pretty equal.
This is great. Awesome. Favorite programming language?
Ooh, that's a tough one and a very contentious one. Golly, it's embarrassing to say. I love R. I love Python. But I'll be honest, I really like Perl.
Okay.
Don't tell anyone, okay? Because they'll make fun of me. But I learned Perl when I was really young, and there's certain things that I just love about it. Can I talk about what I love about Perl?
Sure. Go for it.
Nobody programs in Perl anymore, and to be honest, I don't do it either. I haven't written in Perl in years. I've done everything in Python and R for the past several years, maybe 3 or 4 years. But one thing I like about Perl is that it, and also shell scripting, is that in front of each variable, there's a symbol that tells you what type of variable that is. Mm-hmm. You'll have an @ symbol for arrays. There's a % symbol for hash tables or dictionaries. There's a $sign for scalars or strings. I love that. For me, that makes the code very easy to read. I know people, I know if I say that, people are going to go bonkers because Perl is notorious for being difficult to read. But that's just people being stupid. It doesn't have to be that way. With a little bit of discipline, you can make elegant looking Perl programs. And I agree, yeah, some people write garbage. That's fine. They're going to write garbage in any language, and another thing I like about Perl is it has a feature called warnings and strict, and it'll go through and check all your variables and make sure they're all spelled correctly. And it makes sure that like you're doing everything properly, and it makes debugging very quick. I haven't found anything like it in Python or R, and it makes those languages I believe suffer from it. And there's technical reasons why they can't have it the way they were engineered. But Perl has this thing called warnings and strict that make debugging so much easier. So I'm embarrassed to say that, and I'll be honest, I haven't told anyone that I love Perl before. So you get an exclusive secret for this podcast. I love R and I love Python and I love coding those languages. And like I said, I haven't coded in Perl in a long time, but I miss it. I miss it.
This is my personal quadruple BAM, I'd say then.
Yeah, exactly.
Next question, Josh. What is your favorite movie?
Oh, my favorite movie. That's a toss-up. I like these old movies. It's a toss-up between 2 movies: Apocalypse Now and The Mosquito Coast. And I think The Mosquito Coast wins. It's an old movie from the 80s starring Harrison. It's an all-star cast. It's got Harrison Ford in it. It's amazing. It's about this guy who is super smart, and he's kind of delusional, and he's megalomaniac. He thinks he can do everything. He kind of thinks he's God, and the whole world sort of crashes down on him in the end because he's not God and all those things. But it's, I don't know, it's poignant. I just love watching it. The music in the background is perfect. The movie, it may not age very well for other people. If you're going to watch it the first time, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're doing this stuff. But for me, I remember seeing it a long time ago, and it's just resonated with me ever since. It's probably my favorite movie, Mosquito Coast.
Great. Favorite YouTuber or YouTube channel?
Favorite YouTube channel. I'll be honest, I don't actually watch much YouTube, which surprises a lot of people. I don't actually watch much YouTube because I don't want to copy other people. So I'm no good for that question.
Yeah, I saw that you followed 3 Blue 1 Brown, so Grant Sanderson. So I thought you might be a fan of him.
Oh, I am. I am a fan of him. So yeah, of course, I'm a fan of Grant Sanderson. He's awesome. He wrote me an email. I mean, not directly. I wrote him an email, and he wrote me back, and I was like, "Whoa!"
That's great.
It was like getting an email from, some superstar. I couldn't even read it at first. I was like, I got an email from him. I had to walk away and just be like, I can't believe it. I got an email. He wrote back. I can't believe it. And so I have a crush. YouTube crush on Grant Sanderson. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, you could. But I'll be honest. I've only seen a handful of his videos. I love his style. I love what he's doing. But I actually don't watch his videos regularly. I watched his series on linear algebra, and I watched his series on neural networks. But that's all I've seen.
The same goes for me. The same goes for me. I like him as who he is as a human being and how he interacts with people and helping a lot of people. But I don't watch like every video.
No, I'm not. It's not even a temptation. Just because his style is awesome and it reaches a lot of people, but doesn't really connect to me. Mm-hmm. I at the end of the video, like at the end of the neural network video, it's like I was like, okay, I saw a lot of fancy stuff, but I don't get it. I don't really get how they're working, And he was like, he's like, I don't know. I had trouble following it. It was hard for me, and I know it's beautiful to look at, and I know he's super smart and super awesome, but they don't really resonate with me.
Yeah, this is another parallel we have because as you said, it doesn't resonate with me most of the time. It's a bit weird. There's another channel interviewed him recently. He's called Steve Brunton. He's very good. Know him. He's very good. Yeah, he's very good. He's also dealing with things like PCA, SVD, and proper orthogonal decomposition, things like that. You definitely have to check him out. And maybe once the podcast comes live with him, I'll send it to you as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah.
He's very good. He also has a book on mathematics, and he implements them in Python as well as in MATLAB.
Cool.
And you can choose whatever you'd like. This is really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Next question. One superpower you would like to have?
One superpower. To have infinite time. Like, what is it? Doctor Strange or whatever, who could destroy.
Yeah.
I would love to have, 100 hours in every day so I could rest and get a lot more work done. I just can't get enough done in the time I've got. It's just, I'd like to have more time.
Yeah. It's funny again, like it's the same answer probably I would have given because we have a lot of time. Everybody has 24 hours, but then you see people like Elon who's like having like gazillion companies and he's having the time to pull it off. It's crazy.
It's crazy. Yeah. It blows my mind because I'm completely exhausted by what I do. And I mean, I do what I do, but it's not that. I don't run a spaceship company.
Yeah.
and like 4 other companies.
It's crazy.
So, yeah.
The 10th question, and then I have a bonus one for you. If you were a superhero, what would your name be?
I don't know. Triple Bam. Well, I don't know. I just came up with a comic book character for my book, Stat Squatch. He's like a monster, but he's also my friend in my book. I don't know. What would my superhero name be? Superstat. How about that? Superstat.
That sounds good. Amazing. A bonus question I just came up with. If you win $100 million, what would you do first with it?
Oh my gosh. I would hire a bunch of illustrators to help me out so we could crank out more stuff. I would hire like full-time editors. I'd love to have an editing staff and like a couple of mathematicians on staff that like double check everything and make sure I'm not saying anything stupid. So that would be like first thing. I don't know. I would love. So I work with a nonprofit called SOSA. It stands for the Society of Scientific Advancement, and they try to promote science and STEM things in Jamaica. And it's one of those, Jamaica's one of those, it's an interesting country because it's like when I think of Jamaica, and I think a lot of people think of Jamaica, they think of fun and parties, like let's go to Jamaica and have a great time on the beach. And yeah, sure. Jamaica's got awesome beaches and awesome places to go, but they also have a normal everyday population that's kind of struggling to get like high paying jobs because outside of the tourist industry, they don't have much. They've got a big mining industry. They just scrape off a big hill and send it to Iceland to turn into aluminum. But there's, and they grow coffee and stuff like that. But for the most part, the good paying jobs are not there. And it's been a passion of mine to promote STEM and specifically data science and whatnot, because with the cloud computing, you should be able to do that anywhere. You should be able, as long as I can log into Amazon or Google or whatever the cloud is, I should be able to do top shelf data science anywhere in the world. And so I would try to put some money towards that in terms of like promoting data science in places where historically you wouldn't expect there to be like a data science hotspot in the middle of the Caribbean. But that would be something I would use my money to help promote. And then if I had some leftovers, I'd probably pay to go out in space. Be one of those commercial, be on the new on the Blue Origin thing that goes into outer space, or go to the space station or something. I'm obsessed. Like Elon Musk. I just think he's doing the coolest thing ever. And if I could do something towards that and be a little bit a part of that, that would be a dream come true for me.
Great answer, Josh. I appreciate it. Also love the altruism, by the way. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you would like to tell the audience in general? Some life advice, maybe something like that?
Life advice. I've rambled a lot already, so maybe the best thing I can do is shut down and let people live their own life. When I was, I don't know, life advice. Here it comes. When I was a kid, I always thought that the goal was to do what was most fun, that could pay, right? I was like, what is most fun and pays money? And it's not that. Fun is fun, but it's actually not that satisfying. What is satisfying is making a difference. Mm-hmm. And then making a difference isn't always fun. But the motivation, knowing that you're making a difference, there's nothing better than that. And that's something I learned kind of growing up I love having fun. Don't get me wrong, but I found that finding a job where I make a difference is the most satisfying thing I can do. Yeah. That's my life advice.
This is great. I appreciate it, Josh, and I also appreciate your time, even being on the show. It really means a lot to me. Trust me when I say that. And everybody listening to this podcast, please go over to Josh's channel and write him a nice comment. That would be awesome. With that being said, thank you so much, Josh. Maybe there will be a second part in the future, maybe where you can talk about your book in particular. That would be awesome.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it a year from now. Let's put it on the calendar.
Let's do it. That's awesome. Yeah. Again, thank you so much, and I wish you all the best, and hopefully you reach the 1 million subs soon, and maybe we get a quadruple bam by then. Let's see.
Magic. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks. It's been wonderful.